Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Weekend Waypoints, Season 2 of Weekend Waypoints. I'm your host, Joe Healy. Will be your guide through this and every episode of Weekend Waypoints. If you were with us last season, welcome back. Happy to have you back. If you're new, a quick primer on what this is going to be. Every weekend morning, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the college baseball season, I come on and go live previewing the day in SEC baseball. Occasionally, Easter weekend, maybe we'll go live Thursday as well, or the weekend before conference tournaments will go live on Thursday. So it's not always just the 3 weekend days, but typically that's the case. About 20 minutes, we'll talk SEC baseball. We'll preview the day ahead on Saturday and Sunday. We'll also look back at the day prior and recap things a little bit. My hope for this, as I said last year, is that you grab a cup of coffee, you grab whatever you're eating for breakfast, or maybe you're still, doing like we all do sometimes and laying in bed with your phone in front of you. And you're watching this to get ready for the day in SEC baseball. 95% of the time it will be live. The other 5%, there's occasionally I have to pre-record it. That's usually on a Friday based on my travel schedule. So we'll work around that. If you are watching live on YouTube or on Twitter, X, you can comment. I get to questions as I can. Can't always get to all of them, especially once we get into the business end of the season, and the interest is really, really high in college baseball, which is beautiful, but means I can't always get to every question. So anyway, so welcome back. If you were with us last season, welcome. If you are with us for the first time, last season I did this as kind of an experiment, not really knowing how it would go, or if we do it all season or every day of the weekend or what have you. I had no expectations, but by the end of the season, it was clear that this is something that folks enjoyed, and I'm happy to do it. And selfishly, it kind of helps me get ready for the day and get ready for everything. So it helps me as well, and I have a lot of fun doing it. So let's dive in, shall we? Opening day in the SEC. Obviously, as is the case with all power conferences, the SEC sometimes gets a lot of blame for this, fair or not, but it is true of all power conference teams. A lot of teams just playing overmatched competition opening weekend. That's fine. Whatever you got to get. I understand wanting to a little bit of a soft opening, if you will, but that's not the case everywhere. And we'll talk primarily today about the biggest games in the SEC today. And those are the games taking place at the Shriners Children's College Showdown. The premier opening weekend tournament in college baseball has been the case since that tournament launched in 2021, continues to be the case. And obviously their partnership with Shriners Children's Hospitals, which, does a fantastic job out there, I think has only increased the affinity for that event, because obviously that tie-in is such a cool deal. If you've never been to the tournament, it's kind of a college baseball bucket list item, I think, just because they do such a good job there. And it's 70 something degrees with the roof closed, which even in quote warm places around the country, this opening weekend can be pretty chilly. Case in point, I'm in South Carolina this weekend, South Carolina and coastal North Carolina, and it's going to be pretty chilly. So, it's having the roof, having the climate control in Arlington, a big deal. Anyway, Ole Miss and Texas taking part in that tournament. Ole Miss has Arizona and then Texas. So in all SEC matchup there, of course, that'll be a non-conference game officially on the record books. Ole Miss's final game is against Clemson. Texas takes on Louisville today. Then, of course, the Ole Miss game, and then finishes off with Oklahoma State. I think there's a lot of interest. I mean, fair or not, this tournament always ends up being analyzed and looked. Us at D1 Baseball are a part of that. Like, I'll point the finger at ourselves, but it ends up being kind of overanalyzed sometimes, like looking at the results and trying to figure out what they mean and extrapolate forward to what we might see the rest of the season. And sometimes they turn out to be right, and other times it's just a one weekend blip. But I think the biggest thing I'm looking for with Ole Miss is do they look the part? It's a team obviously coming off 2 tough seasons in a row. They're trying to claw their way back to the postseason. The SEC is not getting any easier. Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. Everyone's conference schedule is brutal. That's just life in the SEC now. But do they look the part? I mean, Arizona, Texas, and Clemson, 3 tough games. So I'm less concerned with their record. I mean, obviously, if they go 3-0, that's a great sign. But even if they go 1-2, I'm less concerned with the record and more just, do they look like they belong in the same neighborhood as those teams? Do they look game? Do they look ready for it? Um, or do they kind of look like they're not quite on that level? And we'll see if they have success this weekend. I think, and this is, I think, true for the whole season. To me, I'm looking at that all senior rotation. Hunter Elliott, Riley Maddox, Mason Nichols, three guys who have been around. I mean, Elliott and Nichols in particular were heroes of that 2022 national title team. As hard as it is to believe, they've still got some of those guys around. Obviously, Nichols has been a reliever. He's been around and has been a solid contributor his entire career. Elliott obviously coming off of two more or less lost seasons because of an injury, because of Tommy John. He's back. The reports from the fall and preseason have been pretty glowing. Our Aaron Fitt at D1 Baseball saw him in the fall and really came back raving about the fact that he might be better than ever. So that's obviously a huge thing for Ole Miss, because if that's true, they have a Friday guy that is going to be right up there with, pick whoever you think the best, SEC ace is in the league this year, Ryan Prager, right? That's one obvious answer. If that's true, he's going to be right there in that mix. So I think that's going to be key for this weekend. It's going to be key all season, is if that senior starting rotation ends up pitching to its potential, I think Ole Miss has a chance. I also think this weekend is an opportunity. I wrote this in a weekend series of the week preview that'll be out on the site this morning. I also think there's a chance for Ole Miss to do some damage offensively. Look, it's a kind of new look lineup. There are some returners. Luke Hill is back. Judd Utermark is back. They're hoping for a big year from him. Campbell Smithwick, but it's they've got freshman Owen Pano is obviously going to be a big part of things this year. They've got transfers, especially in the outfield. Isaac Humphrey, Mitch Sanford, Ryan Moorman. So can that kind of new look lineup get some things done this weekend? I think they can. When you consider that Arizona pitched really well last year, but they're going with Colin McKinney today. He is a transfer from Baylor. The stuff is really good. The numbers last year were not. Is he an improved pitcher? We'll find out. But if we see some of what we saw last year from Colin McKinney at Arizona, there's a chance that Ole Miss puts up some runs. And then the rest of the weekend against Texas, they see Luke Harrison, and I don't know what to expect from him. I mean, great freshman year, then much like Hunter Elliott, 2 injury-marred seasons where he really hasn't got on track, but the reports have been good. So, but don't know what to expect there. And then against, you get Clemson Sunday pitching, which, in college baseball, Sunday pitching across the board can be kind of spotty. Clemson's got a talented pitching staff, but really more than anything else, Ole Miss should be thankful that they drew Clemson on Sunday and not on Friday, where they would have had to deal with Aiden Canuck, who's one of the best pitchers in the entire country. So a big deal there. And then for Texas, so they've got Louisville, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State. Fun matchup today. Louisville's got Patrick Forbes on the mound. For those who don't know, electric arm. He's shown potential the last couple of years, but he's not the most efficient guy. He's really hasn't he isn't stuck as a starter, and it's not clear to evaluators that he is a starting pitcher, but Louisville is going to give it a shot just because he's the best arm on that staff. He was great on the Cape. The fastball is high level stuff. That's his get out of trouble pitch, is his fastball. He gets a good amount of whiff on it. He likes to use it up in the zone where it kind of jumps. So that fastball, when he's in trouble, he's going to go heavy fastball to try to get out of it. But he's a great arm. And Texas's lineup I really like. It's a veteran group. They got some guys back. Jalen Flores is a guy who easily could have been a pro ball if he wanted to be, but he's back at Texas. Obviously, Blue and Gasparino and Schussler and Rylan Galvan, and I can go on and on. I'm sure I'm missing some names, but it's a lineup I really, really like. So, there'll be a pitch count, just like every pitcher on opening weekend. There'll be pitch counts. Nobody's out there throwing 120 pitch complete games on opening weekend. But for however long Forbes is in the game against Texas, that's a tasty matchup. So that's an exciting one I'm looking forward to there. The rest of the weekend, I would say we'll obviously preview this as the weekend goes on. But that Oklahoma State game on Sunday for Texas is intriguing for me because we have them ranked in a similar place in the top 25. I think they occupy a similar space, and I think it's a good, just kind of like a like-on-like matchup, if you will. So should be a fun weekend in Arlington. Excited to get that going today. So that is that. Other things that I'm interested in today. Vanderbilt at Grand Canyon. I think anybody who knows college baseball knows that Grand Canyon's a good program out of the WAC. They are kind of the most consistent team in that conference at this point. What's particularly tricky about this game is not just that Grand Canyon is going to be up for this game and that they're a talented team, but also it's a true road game. Vanderbilt's two other games this weekend against Nebraska and UC Irvine are neutral site games at spring training venues out in Arizona. This one, though, is a true road game at Grand Canyon. So two things there. One is their fans really turn out, especially for big games. Tennessee played there 2 years ago to start the season and lost a game on the road at Grand Canyon. So they can tell you that that's just a tough place to play. That place is going to be packed. It's going to be a great environment. So that should be a lot of fun, if nothing else. Maybe not so much fun if Vanderbilt ends up really getting pushed, but should be for neutral observer. That's going to be a fun game. Injury note: Brody Johnston, who we've talked about a lot this preseason as a potential SEC freshman immediate impact guy, going to miss this weekend. Broken finger, part of his hand, something along those lines. We'll have to see kind of how that progresses. Obviously, rooting for him to get healthy, because I want to see what he can do as a freshman, if he can keep up what he did in the summer and what he did when he arrived on campus in the fall. So I think that's going to be a fun game today between Vanderbilt and Grand Canyon. Missouri is playing in Puerto Rico. That fun tournament. If you're just checking into college baseball and weren't aware, they're playing an opening season tournament in Puerto Rico. There's 8 teams down there. There's 4 in Caguas, 4 in Ponce. Missouri is going to take on Penn State today, which Penn State's kind of a sneaky sleeper team. If you're not aware, they took a big jump last year with Mike Gambino as their head coach. He was the former head coach at Boston College, now at Penn State. There's a lot of talent on that team. They've done a good job with talent acquisition. Mike Gambino did a good job developing at Boston College. So I think this is another step they can take this season. So that's not going to be an easy game for Mizzou today. They've also got UConn and Stetson later this weekend. Obviously UConn, we know that's going to be a tough game. If you follow college baseball, you know UConn. Stetson, hard to know. Like, Stetson's made a regional last year, but before that they weren't as consistent. So let's see. And then Georgia and UNCW, those two teams will not play today. And actually, funny about that, I will be at Georgia UNCW tomorrow and Sunday, because those two teams play on those days. There's a third team in this round robin, that's Quinnipiac. And the way the schedule shook out is today's the day Quinnipiac is playing Georgia and UNCW. Those two better teams aren't playing each other. So with all due respect to Quinnipiac, I'm starting my season off somewhere else. So I'm not watching that doubleheader. So I'm actually down at Coastal Carolina, non-SEC games, but good competition. Coastal, St. Joseph's, Washington, and Kansas State down here. So spending a day down here, then going up to Wilmington the next 2 days. So I'm excited to see those matchups between Georgia and UNCW. Obviously, UNCW, consistent winner in college baseball. Talented team. If you're Georgia, you can't let Tanner Thatch beat you. That's the big star for UNCW. Going to be a high, first couple round draft pick come this summer. Interesting rotation for Georgia. Colton Smith in the opener. That's really no huge surprise. Then Charlie Goldstein as an opener with Leighton Finley coming in after him. So, getting Goldstein a start, but it's not going to be, it's a pitch count situation. Then Leighton Finley, who is really the starter in that situation, coming in behind him. Then Brian Zeldin, who was a reliever last year for Georgia, a really good one. Threw basically starters innings last year, just happened to be in a relief role, but he's getting a start. And then Zach Brown, who is a transfer from Ohio State. There was a lot of buzz about in the fall. So I'm excited to be there the next 2 days, just to get a look at Georgia, a top 10 team. See some folks jumping in here. Casey jumped in early on X. He says, so excited. It's baseball time. This is like college game day for college baseball. First of all, Casey, thank you for the kind words. And there is hope this season for me. I said it last year and it just didn't happen because scheduling can be tough, as all of our D1 folks are in different places. But hoping to have some of my colleagues on throughout the season on Weekend Waypoints to talk about things. And so you don't have to just listen to me for 20 minutes every weekend morning. Jason Armstrong, a returner, he says, blink if they forced you to not pick LSU as your national champion. Good to be back, Joe. Good to see you back, Jason. One of our most consistent commenters last year on Weekend Waypoints. Glad to have Jason back. His name there, Inside LSU Baseball with Jason Armstrong. So it looks like Jason has embarked on his own college baseball project. We love to see that. Jay Seitler says, let's go Yardcocks. Paul is back. Yeah, Paul Maneri. They are playing Sacred Heart. Yeah, Sacred Heart today, this weekend. Should be, just kind of your typical tune-up series. In series like that, just don't make it interesting, South Carolina. That's always the goal with those tune-up series early in the season. But yeah, Paul Maneri back in the dugout. Good to see Paul back in the SEC. We'll see how that goes on the field results-wise, but certainly just on a human level, Paul Maneri just super well-liked around the game, super well-liked in the SEC. So, just one of those people who it makes me happy to see around the game. So glad to see that. And Vis-a-vis 16 on YouTube says, glad to see you back again, Joe. Glad to see you back. And that goes for all of you. Excited to be back, excited to do this again. We'll be back tomorrow morning, probably around a similar time. I'm going to tomorrow be hitting the road for Wilmington around this time in the morning. So a little on the earlier side compared to, when we used to go live for the most part last season. Brandon Miller on YouTube, love Weekend Waypoints, is a newer fan of college baseball. Love the content. I appreciate it, Brandon. That's kind of one of my goals here is if you're someone who hey, if you're a hardcore, looking at you, Jason, folks like that, absolutely love to have you. But yeah, the idea is maybe we bring in some newer folks who just, are just tuning into college baseball, just getting into college baseball, or maybe you're, a fan or an alum of an SEC school and you're dipping your toe in baseball. And I suspect with the season the SEC is having in men's basketball that may take some time for people to come over to college baseball this year because it's been such a good basketball year. I've had a lot of fun watching the SEC basketball this year as well. So anyway, so I'll be back tomorrow morning going live before I head up to Georgia and UNCW. So we'll be back again. And I failed to mention at the top, new sponsor, Weekend Waypoints, Academy Sports and Outdoors. They have gone all in sponsoring stuff at D1 Baseball. We're thrilled to have them. As someone who grew up on the Gulf Coast, a lot of memories of my youth going into Academy Sports and Outdoors, swinging all the bats kind of dangerously in the aisle, putting on all the gloves that are stiff and, you can't get in a move yet, putting on the football helmets, punching the heavy bags. It was one of my favorite places to go as a kid, and still as an adult. As my tastes have changed, I still find myself at Academy Sports and Outdoors. So thank you to those folks for sponsoring this and every episode this season of Weekend Waypoints. We're really excited to have them on board. Okay, folks, that's going to do it. Enjoy opening day. Hey, this weekend, keep an eye on your team, whoever your team is, especially if you're going to games. Keep an eye on their social media and what have you. I know games have moved around. I know there's some chances of rain here in the Southeast this weekend, so just make sure you're keeping up with that so you don't get caught out or don't hit the road when you don't have to. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Enjoy opening day. College baseball is here. It's a long off season, folks, so celebrate opening day and have a lot of fun today. We'll see y'all tomorrow morning.